Hello, just wanted to show you my teardown of a Torch 9810 with a broken screen and the replacement of the screen with another Torch 9810. It happened to be white. The other torch was actually a scavenge from a friend who dropped the torch into the pool, and the phone was pretty much dead. I kept some parts sitting around, and the screen possibly could be a replacement for my torch. So I didn't know how badly water damaged it was, but I kept the screen in any case. I had some issues with the buttons because I saw that there was some tearing of the ribbon cables that went to the buttons. However, I'm pretty sure the screen was intact. So here I am dismantling the my 9810 black torch. First thing you do after you take out the battery is you access 4 screws on the back, and the 5th and 6th screws happen to be underneath the silver bezel. To get to that, you have to get a plastic instrument like you see there, and you basically just pry yourself underneath one of the edges. Doesn't matter where, you just start at the bottom there and you can pry it, and soon you work your way around and you'll get yourself underneath that silver edge, and it slips off in quite a peculiar way. It's a little bit fragile, so you have to be careful, but it will slip right out at an angle and sort of peel off the rest of the phone. So at this point, with that off, you can access the 5th and 6th screws right over there. They happen to be at the top of the phone, and I'm just speeding up the video in some areas, as you can see, so it doesn't bore you. Okay, with those screws off, you can pry off the back. Now, it's not so easy. There's actually a clip that I found out was inside the battery compartment. So if you try to just pry it off, you won't be able to. If you get an instrument, either the plastic one or a screwdriver like you see here, there's a small tab right at the side of the battery compartment. When you press it, it just pops the back off. See? And then it's a lot easier to pry off. It still will stick up near the top edge where the camera and some buttons are. And there's also, I believe, a vibration motor attached to the case. So you'll see there as well that it starts to become an issue. Now I've just managed to get underneath there with something and prying it off. It takes a little bit of pressure, but eventually it will unstick. There may be even some double-sided tape up there that's holding things together. So there's the back of the case off, essentially. There's a few sensors up at the top there, otherwise nothing special. And there's the base of the phone. Now, to get the screen off, there are 6 very small screws that are accessible at the base. Just underneath the battery compartment, there's actually a piece of tape that's taped right across, and to get to those 6 screws, you have to pry the tape off. Now, I tried to use a Torx wrench. I didn't have something small enough to get in there. It happened to be that most of the screws were kind of loose a little bit anyway, so I was able to just use a screwdriver pressing very hard at an angle to grab an edge, and I was able to unscrew most of them. So once again, I've sped up the video here because it can be a little bit tough removing these screws. You really need a Torx 3 or 2. I only had size 4 and up, which was good to get into the phone, but then it was limiting. A lot of the screws within the phone itself are even smaller. So there I've got almost all 6 screws off, and that allows you to take apart the sliding part of the torch screen and remove it. Now, with all 6 screws gone, the screen still doesn't come off. There's one more element that I realized a moment later. So the screen is completely loose. However, it still won't come off because, of course, it's attached to the phone by a ribbon cable. that actually supplies the screen with data and power. and also the actual buttons on the front face of the phone. So there's one ribbon. That's just to allow you to lift up the board at the bottom of the phone there. The one I'm trying to pry there is the actual ribbon that's used to supply the display. It's stuck down to that shield, that metal case shield, with some tape. So you have to remove those two on the edges just to allow you to lift the board up a bit so that you can make some space to pry out the ribbon cable that supplies the screen. So finally, the one with the screen, you just have to be careful not to rip that little tab. And there you go. See, it comes off, but it's stuck down. It's just some shielding and grounding perhaps. So now that board lifts a tiny little bit, allowing some space so that the screen can slide out and that little ribbon can slide out through the little channel. Otherwise, you don't have to really dismantle anything else. So there's the screen, as you can see, with the slider mechanism. Now originally I wanted to actually keep this screen because I had intact buttons on it and I had no issues with that, and I only wanted to replace the LCD itself. However, I soon found out that it was going to be too difficult to just change the LCD. I'd have to take apart the rest of these, the slider mechanism, and it was just becoming a really challenging bit of work. So I just decided to replace the screen, what you see there, with the version I had, the white one from the other phone. Unfortunately, the other phone, although the screen was not cracked, there were some issues with the buttons, as you'll see when you flip it over, and it was very difficult to change buttons from one screen to the next because it's all glued down and really not user replaceable. So you almost have to buy the entire screen with the sliding portion with the screen and buttons in one piece. Otherwise, it's just not very user friendly to swap LCDs, and I didn't want to damage anything else. So here I am putting the white, what I thought was a water damaged screen, into the phone, and I'm powering it up without having screwed anything together, just to see what would happen. And as you'll notice, when I do put the battery in, the red light does come on. However, there's no display. Nothing's happening. Originally I thought it was maybe the display was broken, but as it turns out, I tried my old display, which I knew worked, the one that was cracked, and it happened to be that the phone will not power up unless the backing is on, because I guess there's some programming that looks for the other elements like the vibration motor and camera and so on. So basically you have to have the entire backing on. So at this point I put the backing on. You'll see I have several other parts left over from the other phone, and so I'm just choosing a silver bezel that looks like it has the least wear. So I slide that on, and when you slide it on, you have to sort of do the same thing in reverse as when you put it on, as when you took it off. It can be a bit confusing to figure out exactly how it goes in, but there we go. And just before you slide it all the way, you don't forget to put the two screws that are actually hidden underneath that part. So here I am screwing those in. Again, fast motion just to make things a little easier. Once those are in, you can proceed to slide the entire silver bezel into the proper place. Now there's little tabs all the way around the phone where you have to make sure you get them clicked in. It can be a little bit confusing. You know, there's some spots where it sees you can see it bulging out, so you gotta just wiggle it and make sure all the tabs are inside and so that it's snugly fit. And now you can put in the last 4 screws. And now I popped in the battery so that I don't have to waste time. The phone's powering up in the meantime. You see the lights reflecting there, so that way it's powering up while I've got the I'm wasting time anyway trying to get the other 4 screws in. Now once those are done, I had to decide, what back should I use. I figured I may as well use the white back because I've got the white front screen, and make almost like an Oreo cookie, reverse Oreo cookie effect here. So there's the phone. As you can see, it's powering up. You've got white on outside and black sandwiched in the middle with the silver bezel. Now, obviously my buttons are not really working. The right side there is functioning. You can see the LED, but the left side's completely dead, and that's the phone and the menu key. However, on the right side, I've got the on-off key as well as a back key, and my trackpad is still working. So the good news is I can still use that to access my menus. That's my old screen. You can see it's cracked. The screen still works, everything's still fine, technically speaking. I just can't stand having a crack running through the whole thing. I'd much rather sacrifice a button or two and still be able to use the phone otherwise. That's just some other parts. So you'll see me once it powers up. I'm just showing you the functionality. So I can use the screen, it's clear. There are some strange little blemishes in the screen, I believe due to the water damage, but it otherwise powers up fine, and I can use it. Aside from those two buttons that are really not working on the left side, everything else seems to be functioning fine. And as I mentioned before, I can still access the menu button using the trackpad. If I just press and hold, a little soft menu comes up, and I can choose to use a full menu if I need to. So for the most part, this is not really a main phone. I'm not really using it for much, but if I need to just browse the web or read some news feeds and so on, it's still a perfectly good phone to have laying around the house, or I can throw it around, just play around with it. But essentially, if I wanted to just purchase a screen off the internet, I'm sure they're not very expensive, and they would have functioning buttons all around. So anyway, that's my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and just a quick glance at replacing a cracked screen on my old Black Torch 9810 using a water damaged screen, so I thought, and it worked. Great, thank you.